Hi, this is my painting Be Here, the pinky one behind me. It's painted with acrylic on canvas and it's 61 by 91 centimetres. When I normally paint my paintings, it feels like there's a conversation happening between me and the characters on the canvas. And for this one, it was a little bit different. I felt like I was a bit more of an observer between the conversation between these two characters. And at the end of the painting, I wrote a few lines to reflect and to gain a little bit more understanding about what they were conversing about. And I'll share that story with you a little bit later on. But first of all, I'm going to talk to you about the colours, my colour choices and the symbolism of the painting. So let's dive in. So my painting Be Here. Let's talk about the colours first. I often associate colours with words, and so when I was thinking about what I wanted to talk about in this painting, it had a lot to do with relationships, and so the words that came to mind are vulnerability and love. And when I think about vulnerability, I think about the colours of the skin and all the tones that sit within that, the shadow and light that sits on the skin. And so I use those flesh tones and that idea of vulnerability as a backdrop to the whole painting. And when I think about love, I think about warm tones and the pinks and reds and oranges. And so they sit at the foreground of this painting in all of their variations. The other thing that I thought about when creating this work was the idea of light, which I'm super interested in, and so I wanted there to be an overarching like a descending of light. So with that vulnerability, the colour of vulnerability, for me it also encompasses a feeling of lightness, and I think the lightness allows us to see. Well, the light allows us to see, and I thought about how valuable it is to be able to see ourselves clearly, as well as the one that we're partnered with. So yeah, so light was really important in this painting also. With regards to symbolism, firstly, when I think about relationships and experience within the relationship, I think about the layers and the building upon the history and the past with the present and the future. And so when I created her headdress and her hair, it's got lots of layers and it's got like a burgeoning, growing kind of feel to it. And I thought about also with these shapes, they remind me of petals, and I have that shape a lot in my work, and I think it is because it makes me think about growth and about, if you think about a bud and the way in which it unfolds and opens itself up to the sun and to be seen. And so I think that their experiences have had that effect on them. It has opened them up to each other, I suppose, and to the world and to life. So when I think about her headdress, I think about experience. And when I see her body, the top of her body, I've added a horizon line, and above the horizon line sits a mountain range. And when I think of mountains in relationships, I think of challenge and ascending to a place that is above where we are already. And so they have that. They have a way to go, and they have challenges in order to get there. When I formed the bodies, I allowed the legs to come up and over, and for her legs to come. So his legs come and her legs come up, and they form an arc and a covering, and it looks a little bit to me like a rainbow. And so I think of the way in which each provides relief for the other and shelter for the other. And I liked that they met in the middle. You can see that her legs are shorter than his. I suppose she doesn't have as far to go, but they're different in their movement, the arc of their movement, but they still meet in their difference and help each other in that way. The other thing that I see in this artwork and I love is the way that his body creates a basin or a bay. And I really like how this painting evolved from being not just a representation of the bodies, but that there's a little landscape within the painting. And I think, we often see an external landscape, but there's an internal landscape as well. But this external landscape represents the internal goings on. So he's created a bay or a harbour in which she can rest. And I think that's really nice that he can do that for her. So they become a place of shelter and of rest for one another. So this painting has a story that goes along with it, and as I mentioned before, the work is very much a conversation between these two that I watched rather than participated in. And the story that I wrote has 3 parts to it. The first part comes from one of them, and it is a request or an invitation. And then the other responds with their desire or their statement of intent. Yeah, with their intention. And then in the third part of the story, there is a commitment and a way forward for both of them to be. And it was really lovely to reflect a little more after I had finished the artwork and be able to, I suppose, bring more clarity to the thinking behind the painting and understand what they were doing there a little bit more. So I hope that you enjoy the painting and the explanation behind it and the story that I'll read to you now. Be the bay in my ocean, my harbour mid storms, the climb to my mountain, the rise in my morn. Be the bow in your sky, the safe where you rest, your want and becoming, the beat in your chest. We the one for the other, for present and time, be healer and helper, be here, be mine.